Journey IFC strives to create safe spaces to worship God. Know that you are welcome just as you are, regardless of religious background or lack thereof, skin color, political affiliation, sexuality, age, culture, or any other label you own or society throws on you. You are welcomed and celebrated here just as you are.
Hi, my name is Susan.
Hi, Susan.
I'm going to read to you a poem. It's called Mother Wisdom Speaks by Christine Lore Weber. And I think some of you have probably heard it because I have, and you've read it several times, but it's always a good one. Some of you I will hollow out. I will make you a cave. I will carve you so deep the stars will shine in your darkness. You will be a bowl. You will be the cup in the rock collecting rain. I will hollow you with knives. I will not do this to make you clean. I will not do this to make you pure. You are clean already. You are pure already. I will do this because the world needs the hollowness of you. I will do this for the space that you will be. I will do this because you must be large, a passage. People will find their way through you, a bowl. People will eat from you, and their hunger will not weaken them to death. A cup to catch the sacred rain. My daughter, do not cry. Do not be afraid. Nothing you need will be lost. I am shaping you. I am making you ready. Light will flow in your hollowing. You will be filled with light. Your bones will shine. The round open center of you will be radiant. I will call you Brilliant One. I will call you Daughter who is wide. I will call you Transformed.
Good morning. My name is John. So our reading today comes from the Message, which is the flavor that I like to read. It's a translation of Psalm 19. And so I invite you to picture the night sky as I read this. God's glory is on tour in the heavens. Godcraft on exhibit across the horizon. A superdome. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night declares knowledge. Their words aren't heard, their voices aren't recorded. But their silence fills the earth. Unspoken truth is spoken everywhere. God makes a huge dome for the sun. The morning sun's a new spouse leaping from their honeymoon bed. The day-breaking sun, an athlete racing to the tape. Its rising is from the end of the heavens and its circuit to the end of them, and nothing is hidden from its heat. The revelation of God is whole and pulls our lives together. The signposts of God are sure. The directions of God are clear, enlightening the eyes. More to be desired are they than gold. You'll like it better than strawberries in spring, better than red, ripe strawberries. There's more, God warns us. There's more, God warns us of danger. Otherwise, how will we find our way, or know when we play the fool? Clean the slate, God, so we can start the day fresh. Keep me from hidden faults, from thinking I can take over your work. Then I can start this day sun-washed, scrubbed clean. These are the words in my mouth. These are what I chew on and pray. Accept them when I place them on the morning altar, O God, my rock and my redeemer.
So I really like this idea of looking at creation as a story that speaks to the same story Jesus taught us about, this life, death, resurrection. And so throughout this series, we're going to be we'll start with the heavens, and then we'll zoom into the earth, and then to the trees, and then to the animals, and then all the way into us even. And this is going to prepare us in our minds for seeing this story and how it's not just the Christian faith that has this story and how it actually lives outside of that story. And as I was thinking about this guy this week, I was reminded of a class I took in high school. It was an AP English 4 class. And I took it with a teacher who was the craziest fun. She wore like cheetah print always. She was the most like outgoing woman I've ever met. And she went by Lady Riley because her husband bought her like a square foot of land somewhere. And so she was technically a lady. And so Lady Riley was this huge personality, and I loved her class. And early on, she told our class, she was like, they say flattering gets you nowhere. She's like, with me, flattering gets you everywhere. And so we knew if we all came in and we're like, you look lovely today, she would just put on a movie or something, and we wouldn't have to do anything. But over the year, I became her favorite student, which is a lot to say because her son was also in the class with us. But people knew that if I went and talked to Lady Riley, we could get the day off. And so... But she was a wonderful teacher. My sister had her and has told me how influential she was in her life too. And she's just one of those teachers who makes that impact. But one of the things she always had her students read was a story called The Book Thief. I don't know if y'all heard it. It's a wonderful story by Marcus Zusak. And it's all about a girl who lives through the Holocaust, who's not a Jew herself, but who's living through it and telling her story and finding these books that were being burned. But it's actually told from the perspective of death. So the narrator in the story is death. And this teacher of mine, Lady Riley, always talked about this first chapter of the book as one of her favorite chapters in this imagery here. And I thought it was a cool way to enter into our idea of talking about the heavens, looking up and getting out of our own crap to see this kind of story. But this is from the first chapter, and this is from the perspective of death. And it's called Death and Chocolate, I'll say. First the colors, then the humans. That's usually how I see things, or at least how I try. Here is a small fact. You are going to die. I'm in all truthfulness attempting to be cheerful about this whole topic, though most people find themselves hindered in believing me, no matter my protestations. Please trust me, I most definitely can be cheerful. I can be amiable, agreeable, affable, and that's only the A's. Just don't ask me to be nice. Nice has nothing to do with me. Reaction to the aforementioned fact. Does this worry you? I urge you, don't be afraid. I'm nothing if not fair. Of course, an introduction, a beginning. Where are my manners? I could introduce myself properly, but it's not really necessary. You will know me well enough and soon enough, depending on a diverse range of variables. It suffices to say that at some point in time, I will be standing over you as genially as possible. Your soul will be in my arms. A color will be perched on my shoulder. I will carry you gently away. At that moment, you will be lying there. I rarely find people standing up. You will be caked in your own body. There might be a discovery. A scream will dribble down the air. The only sound I'll hear after that will be my own breathing and the sound of the smell of my footsteps. The question is, what color will everything be at that moment when I come for you? What will the sky be saying? Personally, I like a chocolate-colored sky. Dark, dark chocolate. People say it suits me. I do, however, try to enjoy every color I see, the whole spectrum. A billion or so flavors, none of them quite the same, and a sky to slowly suck on. It takes the edge off the stress. It helps me relax. A small theory. People observe the colors of the day only at its beginnings and ends. But to me, it's quite clear that a day merges through a multitude of shades and intonations with each passing moment. A single hour consists of thousands of different colors, waxy yellows, cloud spat blues, murky darknesses. In my line of work, I make it a point to notice them. So that's what I hope today can be, is that we can take some time to notice what's happening in the heavens. And someone who's not very knowledgeable about space, I am related to my sister-in-law, who's Skylar's sister, Delaney, who's actually on Zoom with us today. So if you have any questions, you can direct them at her. But they're all waving at you, Delaney, right now. I got to interview her this week. She was an astrophysics major at UT, and she'll say all of this in it. But I just thought it'd be kind of cool to get it out of the Christian story and that kind of mindset and go into how does creation speak of this kind of acknowledging the heavens, this cycle of life, death, and new life. And so Delaney will take it over on the video. So we might want to turn the lights down. That'd be helpful. Well, hey, Journey. I'm here with my sister-in-law, Delaney White, who is our resident space expert of sorts. And so since we're talking about the heavens, and I know very little about the heavens, I thought I should reach out to someone who actually knows what they're talking about. So yeah, this is Delaney. So Delaney, if you could introduce yourself and tell us how you connect to space, or maybe why you have a passion for the universe, all that stuff, yada, yada, you know what to do.
All right. Thanks, Jacob. So I, first off, got my degree in physics and astronomy at the University of Texas in Austin. So I do have that background. Yeah, hook 'em. And I mean, I got into that just because I grew up fascinated by space. I remember in middle school, I was like learning about the solar system, learning about the things you do in middle school about space and science. And I was like, this is the best. This is so cool. And I thought everybody felt that way. And I think we all kind of do. But then as I got into high school and things like that, I was realizing like I felt really passionate about it. And it was a little different for me. And I think that has to do with growing up in the country, always getting to look at the stars and just enjoying space outside and time outside. I think that's a really important thing to get to have. I'm very appreciative for that. But just getting to have those moments, I always felt like space was something big, and just like the universe was something big and like full of wonder, like truly wonderful, that I wanted to just have, like pretty much dedicate my life to. So that's why I got my degrees in astronomy and space, and I've done several research projects on space related topics like galaxies, some things in our solar systems, and a few other things. But I'm currently a teacher in North Carolina, taking some time off before I plan to go to grad school, and I'm currently teaching AP Environmental Science. So that's been really fun too, because Earth is my favorite planet, and so I'm getting to teach about that as well while I'm here.
And Delaney's teaching with Teach for America, which is really cool. And I have to say that anytime, everyone at Journey knows I love going to Bernie, to your family's house. We call it the White House. And we love going there, and you can see all of the stars. And Delaney will give us little star parties and point things out for us around a campfire. And so it's one of my favorite things. But yeah, Delaney, thank you so much for being here. I feel like it's such a gift to get to share you with Journey. I know you've been before, and you even have done trunk or treat with us, but it's cool to get to show you off in this way. So I have a second question, and it kind of relates to the first one. It's why do you think it's important to be connected to space, or to know about space?
Yeah, I already mentioned how I felt just like a sense of wonder when I've been able to just like look at the stars and think about space. Like you just have a sense of like this heaviness, this curiosity that I think is really unique to space. And I think that's something that's like truly just human. Like if you think about all of religions and all of history, like a lot of it is based around space. And like we've had all these different models of what the universe may be and what our solar system may be, like just so many different ideas about it, because that's what we did with our time, was just look at the stars. Like they've always been there. We've always been able to trace them. And so I think that's just something human to us, that we can look at the stars, and we've always been doing that. And so it's almost like a way I think I connect to like our ancestors almost, of being able to be like, hey, we've always done this. Like we've always like looked up and been like, oh, that's cool. Like, look at that star, look at that shooting star. The moon looks awesome. Look at the sunrise, the sunset. And it's something that's just inherently human, is to appreciate just like what's above us and what's always there. You know, we've changed, like society has changed. We now have like technology like this and all these things. But even on a bigger scale, like the earth has changed, mountains have formed, like all these big things have changed. But for the most part, the stars have remained. And so I like have this visual in my head of like the earth changing, like cities being built, people walking around in the sky, and like the stars and sunset, sunrise are still like always there. It's just this one like consistent truth that we have. And I had this like realization the other day driving to work. Like we had this like gorgeous sunrise, and I was like, you know what, it makes so much sense that all like the Greek and Egyptian religions were all about like sun gods or moon gods. And because that's like what dictates our lives, is like daylight, nighttime. And it makes sense that the sun is like the source of that, or the star is like the source of that cycle for us.
So another question I have, this is kind of more of a fun one, but what is your favorite fun fact about stars? If you have just one, you can limit it down to.
So Betelgeuse is in the Orion constellation. So we can actually see the Orion belt right now. It's one of the like easiest to spot constellations right now. And Betelgeuse is like this big red giant star. And it's been like that for a really long time. And it's about the cycle of a star is that like once they become a red giant, they continue to burn and use up their fuel. And a lot of times stars will go into a supernova, so they explode and they eject all their material, and it's like this gorgeous explosion. And we would, if it happened, because Betelgeuse is so close, we would like be able to see it during the day. Like it would just be magnificent if that were to happen.
Wow.
And the supernova explosions, we know they happen like every, so many years. And so we're technically due for one, like in the next like 100 years or so. We've been waiting for a supernova explosion that we'd be able to see from Earth. And so Betelgeuse is like our candidate pretty much, because it's like the one closest to us. And recently, I think this was maybe like a year or two ago, we were observing Betelgeuse, and it started like pulsing, and like it had this like change in characteristics, and everybody's like, it's happening. It is happening. It ended up not happening. It turned out that Betelgeuse was just like gassy and had like this random outflow of gas, and everybody got really excited, but it just kind of like farted. It was like a star fart, basically.
That's good.
Yeah. Betelgeuse is also like one of like my grandpa's favorite stars, I think. So we've gotten to talk about it. And so that kind of goes back to like that generational feeling I have about space. Like we've all just been able to enjoy it. So that's why I like the story about Betelgeuse. And it's easy to spot right now.
Is there any way that the stars or the universe relate to that idea of life, death, and rebirth? Does that show up, in space as well?
For sure. So stars do go through like a pretty consistent life cycle. Stars all form by just dust and particles kind of coming together due to gravity. Like they're all just attracted to each other. And by that, they start spinning and like condensing. So we're having these reactions happen, and that's why stars appear to burn. So over time, they burn, and then they ultimately will burn out. And so there's different outcomes from that. So this tends to be like the star's death. They can either go supernova, like I talked about Betelgeuse, or there's another one, but I'm not as familiar with it. It's basically like supernova, black hole, or like collapsing into like this not as spectacular star. Mm-hmm. So they do ultimately like burn out and die, but they do have some sort of like outcome. But in that final outcome, so for example, for the supernova, they explode, they still emit dust. So there's going to be some dust coming off of that. And that dust then can go towards another star being formed or another thing being formed. So even though like the star may die, it's like still having some dust go into something else. Cool. So this is like a chart that's pretty popular in astronomy. It's a periodic table of elements, which you may have seen before. These are all the atoms that we have. But the color coding is showing like how they're actually formed. So a lot of these you can see are coming from stars exploding. I think there's a quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson that's like, "We are made of stardust," or you may have heard something like that, like "You are stardust," and it seems kind of like fake, but it's real. Like we really are made from stardust. Like the atoms that the world is made of, that we have all around us, are made from stars exploding, because to make the atoms themselves, you have to have like really intense heat, really intense pressure, and that only is really happening in stars. You know, it's hard for us to identify with a single like oxygen atom as like being part of us, but fundamentally, like, we are made from stars. And I think this is like really fascinating, because it's like, it's crazy to think of my body being up in the stars exploding, even though it wasn't really my body. It was like all these little particles. So I'm trying to come to appreciate my single, you know, molecular makeup of myself, of like what it had to go through to get to where it is today.
Well, that's so interesting because so Ash Wednesday was this, past Wednesday, and we, Christians traditionally put ashes on their, in the sign of a cross on their forehead, and there's all these scriptures where they say, you are from dust, and to dust you shall return. And so, really, we should be saying, you are from stardust, and to stardust you shall return. So, what can the stars teach us? How can we be more like the stars?
Doing like being in science, being in STEM, it's very much like we're just talking about the facts. There's not a lot of humanity side to it. It's like very much just like fact by fact. I didn't feel like I was helping anyone. I didn't feel like I was doing a whole lot. And so I kind of asked my graduate student friend, I was like, hey, like, how do I feel good about the work I do? Like, yes, I love it, but I feel like I've lost the human side of who I am, and like who we are, and how I can relate what I do to humanity. And she offered this like perspective that astronomers are able to have this really unique view on just like the world, because we understand the scale of things. There's I can share this video with you, but there's just like so many different demonstrations on how like small we are, and how like the size of the universe compared to just like the size of us. And I think for a lot of people that feels like really overwhelming, and like you don't want to think about it, it's scary. But I know for me personally, like understanding that scale just makes me appreciate the world, and like the people around me, and my cat, and like all these little things that I'm like, how are we here right now when like the rest of the world, or like the rest of the universe, is so big and just so much. But I'm getting to like have this moment, I'm getting to have this nice conversation with you, like, and that feels like my world. And I think being an astronomer, understanding space, you have this ability to take a step back, and like even when like the worst thing is happening, being like, hey, like everything is pretty remarkable that this is happening. Like this shouldn't be happening, almost, because of the scale of the universe, but it is. And that's remarkable, good or bad. Like it's remarkable that we're here.
But do you find space spiritual? Do you have any spiritual connection to the universe, the stars?
There's this idea in physics and in astronomy, but it's this idea of entropy, which is just that we tend towards disorder. Like all things are going towards disorder. Like the reason fruit ages, like the reason we get old, the reason like something falls off a shelf, or a ball rolls down a hill, like all processes are dictated by entropy. And that, I think, once again seems like a very negative thing. Like, oh, that means nothing good can happen. It's only going to go towards chaos or disorder. But the way I've always thought about it is like, no, then that means that humanity and like all these little things around us is really significant. Like it's really special that we can exist, because we're very highly ordered systems. Like, yeah, there's some chaotic parts of us, but for the most part, it's pretty fun being human, and like getting to interact with people, when on like the grand scale of the universe and like outside of the world, like things are pretty bland. Like we think of space as being spectacular and all that. We see the pictures of the Hubble Space Telescope or the James Webb Space Telescope, and like all the crazy things in space. But for the most part, like space is pretty blank. Like on the large scale of it, yeah, yes, we can focus in on some cool features, some cool stars, but overall space is like there's not a lot going on average. And so the fact that like humans and anything, plants, a tree can exist and be a highly ordered system is like amazing to me. And I get like a lot of hope and energy from that. And I think that's why I like studying environmental science, because I'm like, how is this even happening with like the bigger picture of the universe?
Do you have any other final words of wisdom or anything you want to say to us here at Journey?
Because we exist, like we are currently stars in a way, because we are existing when space is just a bunch of nothingness. Big part of my spirituality connects to this idea, the law of conservation of energy and mass. Mm-hmm. So I think most people could say like one of the biggest rules in science is that like energy is neither created nor destroyed, and mass isn't either. And so that has been a big, like, that has a lot of meaning to me, because I've already talked about the particles and how I think about each particle of my body being part of the stars. But then I think about the journey of each of those particles coming from like whatever star formed it, and then finding its way here and finding its way to like form my body, and like the things I eat, like these all came from something. And the statistical probability of that is just shocking when you sometimes like pause and think about it. And like before this call, I was like sitting with my cat Clobs, and I was like, wow, look at our particles coming together and like having this cute moment together. Like maybe one day, like after we die, like, you know, our particles will still exist. We won't be living in them. Like we'll be doing something else, whatever that may be. But those particles will still be there. And there's still, I think, a connection to us, to those particles. And so seeing how that change happens and what Clobs and I may be one day is hopeful and fun to think about for me.
You know, that's really cool to think about how you talked about entropy and this idea of like things are, you know, destined for chaos or destruction or whatever, but at the same time, there's something eternal about us. Like there's something that cannot be created nor destroyed, you know, the like law of conservation of mass. And like, how cool is that it's at both end of like, we're headed towards death, which we know is humans, we die, plants die, things die, but something is still eternal in that. And how we can sit and enjoy how we are made up with our cat or with the people around us. Mm-hmm. I love that. Well, that's awesome. And I'm excited to learn from you along the way, just like we're learning from you right now. And I want to say thank you for being willing to like get on Zoom late at night after a long day of working as a teacher, which is not an easy job, and gifting your knowledge and presence with Journey. Thank you so much. I know everyone at Journey is going to be super excited to see this. So thank you.
Thank you. So much fun. I'm excited too.
Cool. Well, we'll talk to you later. So I've said several times, I worked at a church camp for a couple of summers in college, and I loved it. It was a great time. Skylar always said there was Jacob and then there's Camp Jacob, which is another reason, which is the truth. And there was a song we sang, and it's called Awesome, and I always thought it was a little cheesy, and it's not that the Lego movie Awesome one, but it's close enough. Yeah, exactly. But everything is awesome, right? But it's a song called Awesome, and I remember we had someone do like a little devotional on the idea of the word awesome. And I think we hear it so much that it has lost its meaning. We're like, oh, that's awesome, dude. You know, like we kind of throw it away so easily. But they reminded me that when we say awesome, it's something that is inspiring awe, something that is doing that. And I think that's what Delaney was saying, that sense of, we all kind of have that feeling of, you look at the stars and it's like, whoa, what is going on? That sense of just being overwhelmed. And so as we sing this song, although it can feel a little cheesy, I want us to think about that idea of awesome, what is awe-inspiring about the heavens, about what's going on here, about this Lenten journey we're going on. Awesome, 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 my God and Lord. Awesome, 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 oh my God and Lord. Much more than awesome, and you are maker of the Milky Way, and you know every star by name, and you know kings of lands and grains of sand. Oh yeah, and you love me. Oh, how awesome. You love me. Oh, how awesome. But I send you with a blessing that kind of got from Delaney, and that's the idea that you are from stardust to stardust you shall return. So go in peace. Amen.